Hey boys and girls, this is Miss Super. We're going to do two example problems to refresh our minds on what partial quotient strategy is in division. So the first problem we're going to do is 96 divided by 4. With partial quotient, it's very similar to the area model strategy, except you're kind of going down the side, and our problem is set up like a traditional division problem. So our 96 would be our dividend. That's your big number in the problem. And then our number we're dividing by is 4. That is called the divisor. And we're wanting to know what our answer is. The answer to a division problem is called your quotient. And that's where the word quotient comes from in this strategy. You're finding the quotient. And here in a minute, I'll explain to you why this is called partial quotient. The partial part of the title will make way more sense here in a few seconds. But to get started, just like with area model, I'm trying to get to the 96 over here to the side. So I want to think of what is something I can multiply by 4 to get as close as I can to 96 without going over. Well, I like thinking of this as I like looking at the 10 spot, or the number that's in the front of my dividend, and that's a 9. I know 4 can go into 8, which is pretty close to 9. So 4 times 2 could get me to 8. But guys, this is a 2-digit number, so I need something here. I know if I add a 0 and make it 4 times 20, then I can get 80. Okay, so I got to pick what this number was going to be that I multiplied 4 by. When you're working through partial quotient problems with division, you can choose whatever number you want to go out here. You could have chosen 10, and you could have just subtracted 40 if you wanted to. But in this case, I chose to do 20 because that got me closer to my dividends number 96. And I know I'll have less to worry about here when I subtract. But again, you could have chosen a different number here as long as you don't go over the total right here, the 96 dividend. But if you choose a number that goes over that, then it messes up the whole problem. So make sure you don't go over this total there. You're trying to get as close to that as you can. So once you figure out what you want to multiply by 4, because we're using 4 over here as our divisor, and it's going to be 4 every time that you're multiplying by. We're just focusing on what number you choose to put out there. So 6 minus 0 is 6. 9 minus 8 is 1. All right, so I'm left with 16. Again, I got to go again, just like with area model. 4 times what could get me close or right at 16? Well, if you know your multiplication facts, then you know 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, you could have chosen 2 right there and gotten 4 times 2 is 8. And then you would have subtracted 8, and then your answer would have been 8, and then you'd have to do it again. But because I used 4 and I got right at 16, when I subtract that, I'm down to 0. So once you get to 0, you're done here. You don't have to keep multiplying 4 by numbers to reach what you're needing. Once you get to 0, you're finished. Now, you're not finished with the partial quotient problem at all, because now you have to take the numbers that you multiplied 4 by and add them together to get your quotient, which is your answer. So I know 20 plus 4 is, and I could write it out here to the side, 20 plus 4, bring down my 2. Or if you just know that, my 4 would take the 0 spot, and that would be 24. You can do it that way. Mental math, that works. 24 would be my quotient. So that means that 4 times 24 would give me 96 if I had multiplied. So it's called partial quotient because these are parts of your quotient. When I add them together, I find the total, which is your quotient. So you're finding parts of the quotient. That's why it's called partial quotient. All right, so here's example number 2. We're going to use a little bit bigger number here, a bigger dividend. Instead of using a 2-digit number, we're going to start using a 3-digit just to see that when the number gets bigger here, you're probably going to have to do more steps over here to the side to get to your 0 down here at the bottom. So my first step is to try to get as close to 245 as I can by taking 5 and multiplying it by something to get as close to 245. So right off the bat, I think about, okay, well, I know 5 times 20 would be 100. So you could use that, but if you could get closer by using a bigger number than 20, then you can do that. But make sure that whatever number you use here, 5 times that number, it can't go over 245 or you're not going to be able to work through this problem. So let's just go with 5 times 20 because that's easy. I know 5 times 2 is 10, and then I have a 0 there, so add a 0 to the end. Right, so 5 times 20 is 100. All right, I'm going to subtract that. 5 minus 0 is 5. 4 minus 0 is 4. 2 minus 1 is 1. All right, so now I'm at 145. Now remember, what we're trying to do right now is get all this all the way down until we get to 0, okay? So you keep using the number 5. That's your divisor. You always use it out here to the side. 5 should be in every part of your quotient that you're trying to find. So 5 times, I could do 20 again, because again, I know 5 times 20 is going to give me 100, and 100 is even closer to 145. So let's subtract that. 5 minus 0 is 5. 4 minus 0 is 4. 1 minus 1 is 0. So now I'm at 45. All right. So now I want to use 5 times, I know 5 times 10, that's 50, but that would be over 45, so I don't need to use that. What's an easy one we might know? 5 times maybe 4. Or if you're really good with your multiplication facts and you know right off the bat that 5 times 9 could get you to 45, then you could do that and you would eventually be at 0 right away. But let's pretend we don't know our 9s very well, because the 9s are pretty hard to remember. So let's just say we do know 5 times 4, okay? We know 5 times 4 is 20, so I might want to use that one. So I subtract that. 5 minus 0 is 5. 4 minus 2 is 2. I'm still not at 0 yet, so now I have to do another one. 5 times what could get me to 25? Well, I just did 5 times 4, which got me to 20. So if I go 5 more and do 5 times 5, then that would get me to 25. So when I subtract it, I would get 0. Now, guys, we reached 0, but we're not finished, okay? We did reach 0, so we're finished doing our partials over here. Now we got to take our parts of our quotient that we used. Okay, we never use the number that we multiply by every time. We don't use that number. We use the parts, the pieces you decided on there. And guys, depending on how you work through this will depend on what numbers you have out here to the side. What you work out here, you might have chosen different numbers than your friend that sits next to you in class. If your parents work this out, they may have chosen different numbers than you chose on your paper. And that's okay as long as you're not going over the number you're trying to reach, okay? Also, if you have different numbers out here to the side than your friend does, regardless of the numbers you choose to use, your answers should still be the same answer if you did it the right way. But this is the cool thing about partial quotient is you get to choose the numbers you're most comfortable with to multiply by. So it's what's easy for you. So I'm going to take these parts and put them together by adding them all up. So 20 plus 20 plus 4 and 5. Well, I know 20 plus 20 is 40, and I know 4 plus 5 is 9. So if I add that together, I get 49. So this, boys and girls, is my quotient. So my quotient goes on top. So 49. So 245 divided by 5 equals 49. I could also say this by saying 5 times 49 would give me 245. All right. Again, this is called partial quotient strategy because I'm finding parts of my quotient. And when I find the parts and I get to 0 here, if I add my parts up, it equals my quotient. So I'm finding parts of the quotient. My quotient is the answer to my division problem. If you have any further questions, make sure you message or email or ask your teacher. In the meantime, practice makes perfect. So go get a piece of paper and get your parents or sibling to put down a practice problem for you and practice until you feel comfortable with it, guys. I hope this video helped. See you soon.